My son spent the majority of last year being so worried about his dad. He would cry to me and he would say, why is dad ignoring me? He must be so upset about this. Dad's not talking to us because he's just so upset at the thought of leaving us. And I kept telling this piece of shit, the longer he stayed, because he wouldn't leave, the longer he stayed, the worse it was for the boys. And my youngest son got it in his head that he wasn't leaving because he desperately wanted to stay. So I became the villain. He thought that his dad wanted to stay and I was forcing him out. And at the time I didn't have the heart to tell him that his dad was lying on the couch, and in addition to juggling all these other women, he was spending his time weaseling his way into another single mom's life. And he was telling her about their future and whatever. I couldn't tell him. Eventually, when that animosity started to turn towards me, I had to have a real conversation. And I had to say, listen to me. I hate to say this to you guys, both of them. I said, I hate to say this to you guys, but I used to say things like, your dad loves you, but, we're not good married. I like PG stuff, but they're not young. They're not that young. So eventually I had to say, listen, your dad is a serial cheater. Like, I had to. I didn't know what else to say. And it broke me because I had worked overtime. I had worked so hard to try to preserve a relationship that he didn't give a fuck about. I worked so hard to get them to try to, keep it. But I had to tell him. They will never know the details of what I know. The things that I can never unsee or unhear, especially unsee. They will never know those horrors specifically. But I had to get my youngest son to understand, like, no, it's not that your dad wants to stay here so badly and I'm forcing him to leave, because he just wouldn't leave. Because the whole time, he's working with this, not the whole time, but, the last few months, he's working with this charity. This kid was so upset at the idea of his dad being alone and sad and miserable and what's he going to do without us, not knowing that he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care at all. Matter of fact, he moved out on their birthday weekend. He knew he was going to be moving out that weekend. One birthday's on Friday, one birthday's on Sunday. He knows he's never going to be around for youngest kid's birthday again. He knows that. What is he doing on youngest kid's birthday? Blowing him off. I'll give you one guess as to what or who he was blowing him off for. Blew him off knowing that the next day he was going to be moving out on the other kid's birthday. So my oldest son also has been such a mess that he had to drop out of school, had to drop out of college. His head wasn't in it. He was rebelling. He was depressed, and we're still working through that. They're both in therapy. It's been a nightmare for them. It's easy for me to acknowledge and say, you know what, you're better off, right? Like, he was literally always gross and disgusting. Like, you're way better off. Like, you're a fucking queen. He's a piece of shit. That's easy enough. But seeing what he's put my children through, willfully, did it on purpose. He did it on purpose. He could have disappeared into the night 15 years ago. But he chose, and he would have continued to use me. He told me that I had no right to anything that was his. No right to his money, no right to anything. So I went down the list. The first 2 homes, Rachel purchased and furnished them. The first 2 vehicles, also Rachel's money. Why does Andrew have a passport? Why does Andrew have stamps in his passport? Why has Andrew ever left the state of Kentucky? And I don't care how that sounds. I financed all of that. All of it. That man never would have left the country. He never would have left the state. He not only used me, but used my family for their resources. He used all of us. My mother, he would he would be like, that's my mom. Like, that's my mom. When he would get out of surgery, he would cry for my mom. He wanted my mom so badly. That was like the closest person to him. Now she doesn't exist. Now all of a sudden she doesn't exist. So he's going to latch on to the new girlfriend's mom, the new girlfriend's friends, the new girlfriend's family. Whatever she is, he will try to mirror. He was, brought up in church, and I said, hey, listen, I'm a student of history. I was also born a Jew. I am not religious. I'm not going to raise my children to be religious. Gotcha. Church boy his whole life. All of a sudden, he was telling people, "Oh, I'm Jewish. My wife is a Jew. Her family's Jewish." Now he's going back to a religious, godly man out of nowhere. My guess is because the girlfriend's probably religious, or that's just what he wants to portray. He just tries to mirror whatever. He's a chameleon. He's a chameleon. But my son having to drop out of college because he doesn't know how to deal. My youngest son, which I'm so proud of him, he's completely did a full turnaround since that motherfucker's left. But he was a D student, missing tons of school. Now he's a straight A student. He's doing fantastic. We're going into his senior year. It's going to be, I'm going to make sure he's not going to have the senior year that my oldest son did. But knowing that he put me in a position to fail on purpose, knowing that, and what did I do? What did I do except confront him with what he had done to me? What did I do? You abused me. You were so abusive and you put me down. You mean when I confronted you with your own behavior? When I confronted you with the things that you had done to me? I was abusive because I said, you're a fucking monster for cheating on me and lying about this and lying about that and cheating on me when I was pregnant. Like, what did I do except expose you? And now I'm the bad guy. I never did anything except expose that man. That was it. I propped him up. I was a good spouse. I was a good spouse. I was better than he deserved. Way better than he deserved. And he knew that. And instead of leveling up, he decided to drag us all to hell with him. Because he's a fucking monster.